All right, good evening. I want to welcome everyone to the Planning and Zoning meeting for November 16th, 2023. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The commissioners who are here are present for this evening's meeting at City Hall and on Zoom. We also have staff from the city's attorney and city clerk's office, as well as the city planning department. If you're joining us here on Zoom this evening, we can see that you are here. You may observe the meeting. However, your ability to talk and be on screen will be muted. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, you will be unmuted and able to comment. Please note that we cannot take questions until the public testimony portion of the meeting. If you have a process question during the meeting, please email cityclerk@meridian.org and they will reply as quickly as possible. If you simply want to watch the meeting, we encourage you to watch the stream on the city's YouTube channel. You can access it at meridiancity.org/live. With that, let's begin the roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Patrick Grace.
Here.
Grace. Commissioner Myers.
Here.
Commissioner Rivera.
Here.
All right. Next up is the adoption of the agenda. There are no changes to the agenda tonight. Could I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Point of clarification, that's a motion to adopt, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
I make the first motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, at this time, I would like to briefly explain the public hearing process. And we will open each item individually and begin with the staff report. Staff will report their findings and how the items adhere to our comprehensive plan and our unified development code. After the staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward, present their case, and respond to staff's comments. They will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant is finished, we will open the floor to public testimony. Each person will be called only once during the public testimony. The clerk will call the names individually of those who have signed up on our website and in advance to testify. You will then be unmuted on Zoom, or you can come to the microphone in chambers. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you have previously sent pictures or a presentation for the meeting, it will be displayed on the screen and our clerk will run the presentation. If you have established that you are speaking on behalf of an HOA or another group where others from that group will allow you to speak on their behalf, you will have up to 10 minutes. After all of those who have signed up in advance have spoken, we will invite any others who wish to testify. If you wish to speak on a topic, you may come forward in chambers, press the raise hand button if on Zoom, or press *9 and wait for your name to be called on the phone. As a reminder, if you are listening on multiple devices, such as a computer or a phone, or a computer and a phone, please be sure to mute those extra devices so we can hear you clearly without feedback or echoing. When you are finished, if the commission does not have questions for you, you will return to your seat in chambers or be muted on Zoom and no longer have the ability to speak. Please remember that we will not call you up to be heard a second time. After all testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to come back and respond. When the applicant is finished responding to questions and concerns, we will close the public hearing and the commissioners will have an opportunity to discuss and hopefully make a final decision or recommendation to City Council as needed. With that, I would like to open up the first item on the list, H-2023-0048, Meridian OZ. We will begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The first application before you tonight is a request for a conditional use permit. This site consists of 2.39 acres of land. It's zoned R40 and is located at 1475 East Franklin Road at the southwest corner of Franklin and Locust Grove Roads. This property was annexed back in 1999 with a development agreement that entitles the property to develop with multifamily residential apartments at a density of 15.6 units per acre. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation is mixed use community. A conditional use permit is proposed for a multifamily residential development consisting of 36 dwelling units in 8 three-story structures on 2.39 acres of land in the R40 zoning district. All of the units are proposed to have 2 bedrooms each. The gross density of the development is 15 units per acre, consistent with that approved in the existing development agreement and with the guidelines in the comprehensive plan for the mixed-use community designation. Access is proposed via South Locust Grove Road. No access is proposed or allowed via East Franklin Road. Staff recommends a cross-access and ingress-egress easement and driveway with a pedestrian walkway is provided to the property to the south for future interconnectivity. That property is also designated mixed-use community. Staff is also recommending a cross-access ingress-egress easement and driveway is provided to the property to the west for interconnectivity and access via Franklin Road. Off-street parking is proposed in excess of UDC standards. Based on 36 two-bedroom units, a minimum of 75 parking spaces are required. A total of 76 spaces are proposed. A minimum of 9,000 square feet or 0.21 acre of common open space is required that meets the UDC standards for such. Of that area, at least one common grassy area of at least 5,000 square feet is required to be integrated into the site design, allowing for general activities by all ages. An open space exhibit was submitted as shown that depicts approximately twice as much open space as required, exceeding UDC standards. A minimum of 3 site amenities are required to be provided. Enclosed bike storage, a community garden, a pathway, and children's playground equipment are proposed in accord with UDC standards. Schematic renderings were submitted as shown for the proposed 3-story structures. Building materials are anticipated to consist of a mix of stucco, siding, and mixed metals for accents with neutral color scheme throughout. To provide variation in profile, staff is recommending the buildings incorporate modulation. Final design is required to comply with the design standards in the Architectural Standards Manual. Written testimony was received from Brad Banks, Intermountain Wood Products. He is in opposition to this development on the basis of traffic concerns at the intersection. A copy of his letter is included in the public record. The applicant did submit written testimony in agreement with the staff report. Staff is recommending approval with the conditions in the staff report. Staff will stand for any questions.
Would the applicant like to come forward?
The applicant is online.
Is everybody able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you if you are able to get maybe a little closer to the microphone.
How about now?
That's great.
Perfect. Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Jory Delgado. I'm here to discuss and answer any questions that the commission and staff may have regarding the Meridian OZ apartments. This proposal is for a new multifamily development consisting of 36 two-bedroom units as stated by staff. Previously, as you may remember, we were proposing 65 units, but after discussing this application and reviewing the staff report with City Council, they kind of mentioned that this site is better at a lower density to comply with the DA that's in place. So we took that to heart and we redesigned the site and cut it in half. So we now comply with the DA that is currently in place for this site. And as you can see, we've dropped that down to 36 units rather than 60. And we feel that we've created a more livable and more desirable site for tenants and others in the surrounding area. So with that, I will just leave it open for questions from the commission or staff.
Any commissioners have any questions? All right. With that, we can move to testimony. Do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, I have an Ann Witherell here.
If I can get your name and your address, please.
My name is Ann Witherill and I live at 215 South Locust Grove Road. I'm one property away from this. It was turned down by city council last time because, well, for one thing, it was 3 stories high and really stuck out like a sore thumb. If it were to be built, still 3 stories high. Also because it only has a right in and right out on Locust Grove Road there. For all of those people, that generates a lot of traffic. There's always already a right in, right out housing development right across the street from that. That's a mess. It's hard getting out of my driveway sometimes with cars flipping a U-turn to get back into so they can get into their homes. So with that, I agree very much with Mr. Banks that it is a traffic hazard. Also, the blank area you see there is a collection area for the 5 Mile Creek area. It's a wonderful wetland and a drowning hazard for any child. You can, excuse me, wire this off any way you want it, but they can still go around the front and get in there. So it is a drowning hazard for children. With that, I'll just conclude my testimony by saying that this just doesn't fit the neighborhood at all. It doesn't. It's the businesses behind us. There's a huge warehouse going up next to me. And I don't feel like it's a secure place if we're going to have all of these apartments here. And I think that's it. Thank you for hearing me.
Much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Grace.
I apologize. I do have a question, and if it's for staff, I think anyone could really answer it, but so maybe staff, but if the applicant has to come back up, so be it. Can I just get a confirmation? There's the only ingress and egress is through Locust Grove, and that there's no connection to that north-south street to the west. I think it's Atkins maybe or something like that. Can I just get that confirmation about the traffic pattern?
Mr. Chair, if I may respond to that. The only access available to this site is Locust Grove Road. It is a full access that's being proposed. Staff is recommending a cross-access easement and driveway is provided to the property to the west. And that would be the thought behind that is for an eventual access to Franklin Road. There is, I would like to note, I think it's a 20-foot wide parcel that's in between this property and the adjacent property to the west. I believe it's owned by the Business Owners Association. There are a lot of trees, existing mature trees within that area that would need to be removed in the area where the cross access is provided. And we would have to have approval from that property owner for that access to be reciprocal and go through.
Okay, has the applicant explored that at all?
I'll let the applicant respond to that.
Yes, we have explored that. We have actually tried to acquire that piece to make it to where we did have a secondary access, but we've been unable to get in touch with the owners of that skinny little parcel that goes down the side that is full of mature trees. We did speak with the applicant who it sounds like the application may have been withdrawn next door on that Adkins piece of property. So we actually do have a proposed future access over there, which is kind of our green space up there. We removed some parallel parking spaces so that if that applicant ever did pursue that and the owner of the strip of trees was to ever sell that piece of property or was able to work with us just to acquire that piece of it, we do have the room to add in a secondary access, which we would love to do and we've tried to do, but we've just been unsuccessful with that owner in the middle. And we obviously can't just rip down their trees.
Yeah. Okay, thanks so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else signed up to testify?
I do believe there's a Lindsay UG, that's attending via Zoom.
See, you are on mute if you would like to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Lindsay, I don't know if you're speaking, it sounded like you were speaking, but we could not fully hear you, kind of cut out. So try that again. With your name and
If you
your
can hear
address.
me, if you can hear me, I didn't intend to speak tonight. I submitted my comments via email.
Okay. Would you like to speak at this point or?
I can't right now, sorry.
Okay, no worries. Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else?
No one else is raising their hand for this hearing.
Mr. Chairman, can we just, if I can ask you to pause just for one moment, I just want to, I don't recall staff mentioned we had an email. Is that in the record or?
Mr. Chair, I was told that it came in at 5:40, I believe, PM today.
Got it.
It has not been included in the public record yet due to the lateness of the receipt of the email.
Are we still clear to proceed that?
I'm just going to think out loud for a
Yeah,
moment, but my concern is that, I guess, maybe I would offer, Ms. Uexi the opportunity to speak one more time if she wants to. It sounds like she's predisposed and may not be able to, but because we received her email so late in the day, we don't have the full benefit of her thoughts. So I'd like to offer to her one more time, if she would like to orally offer her thoughts, that would be very welcome and we'd appreciate that. If she's doesn't want to do that or not able, we understand that as well. So I'm just going to make that offer. I'm going to pause for 10 seconds and see if she's available. And if not, we'll press on.
Would you like to speak in light of that email not being included in the public record? Right. It seems like we will move on to the next testimony. In light of that, anyone else signed up to speak?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Anyone in the chambers like to come forward and speak? All right, would the applicant like to come back up? Or we join in Zoom?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I'm having difficulties with the microphone on my computer. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I would just like to make a couple comments about some of the public testimony. One of them was, I think she stated that last time we were denied because it was 3 stories. That was not my understanding. My understanding was that city council would like us to lower our density and make it more appropriate to fit the area, which we did. We lowered it in half essentially, and we lowered it to the correct units per acre for that development agreement. Also with the ACHD drainage facility, we are aware that it's there. We have tried to work with ACHD for multiple things that we would like to do with that area. But again, it's owned by ACHD and there's only so much that they can let us do with that. It was noted in the staff report that they would like us to have a wrought iron fence around it. So we are going to be putting up a wrought iron fence. And that's as much as we can do unless ACHD allows us to do anything further, which we would love to work with them in the future and plan something really creative and safe for the area. But that is going to be at the liberty of ACHD. And then as far as the ride in, ride out, again, that goes back to having the secondary access. We would love to have the secondary access, but again, we need to kind of get with that property owner in the middle and see if we are able to acquire just a piece of that property to make that happen, which again, we would love to do. But for now, safety reasons, we are keeping it as a ride in, ride out. And it was also noted in the staff report that that's what they would like that to be. So that is all my comments for the public testimony.
Do commissioners have any questions for the applicant or staff?
Mr. Chairman, I just had one question maybe for staff. I don't participate usually by Zoom, so I'm not very fluent in this, but I'm trying to, just out of fairness, I think you mentioned there was a written comment from a gentleman at the beginning of this hearing, and I just want to, I'm trying to find a link to those public comments in the packet, and just so I can, click on it and read it. I was preparing this evening and I wasn't able to find that. And again, just out of fairness to the public who've submitted comments, I'd like to read them. I'm just not sure how to access them right now. I know the last submission was late and it's probably not in the packet, but I think you said there was an earlier one.
Staff is there?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Grace, and I apologize, I was having a sidebar with our planning supervisor on that exact same point. So I think I caught the gist of Commissioner Grace's thought, and we are probably thinking the same way. So if I get this wrong, I beg your indulgence because I was having a secondary conversation, but we were having a similar thought. I think the city clerk does have the email that was brought up earlier that was received very late in the process. The clerk, the city clerk is willing to read that. It's not that lengthy. So if the chairman and the commission is willing to do that, we could read that into the record. And then was there a request for the second letter as well from the other?
Yeah, Commissioner Grace, you could speak, but I think that correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the gist was there was that letter from the gentleman prior to today.
Yes.
With the traffic concerns, and he's just looking for a link to that or for that to be read. There's no link.
Let's start with my recommendation, I guess. Let's start with having the city clerk read the email that came in quite late, like after 5 o'clock today. We can get that into the record. The commission would have the benefit of that citizen's thoughts and concerns. And then let's pause after that and think about how best to deal with the second letter that was received a little earlier.
Thank you, Kurt.
Mr. Clerk.
Kurt, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the consideration of the commission from Lindsay, the property owner directly south of the proposed development, please consider the following. Is it possible for the sole entrance and exit to not block the infiltration ditch that moves drainage from my property into the ACHD pond? Is the limited visibility and access to the apartment buildings C1 and 2 and D1 and 2 west of the pond safe? The chain link fence north of the property is behind the industrial buffer zone, not on the property line. There is no way to ensure no cross access onto my property and the other single family property south without a fence going through the buffer zone, which the applicant does not have access to. There is a clear vision triangle on the landscaping plan, which suggests having the authority utilize a corner of my property. I have never agreed to this restriction. Despite repeated recommendations, the applicant has not moved the only trash receptacle, nor have they provided recycling. The trash can remains feet away from my barn. Is placing a playground between a blind corner and a barbed wire fence surrounded pond safe? The only signage for this multifamily development would have to appear before the driveway, or it would be on my property. This would further limit visibility to an already unsafe sole entrance exit. Is it safe to have traffic entering and exiting at one point, which is A, close to a major intersection, and B, has limited visibility due to the pond and proposed landscaping? With sincere appreciation for your time. Lindsay Yecki.
Thank you, City Clerk. And Mr. Chairman, perhaps we can talk about how best to deal with the letters received earlier. So I haven't seen that letter. I can look for it real quickly. We could read that if that would be helpful to the commissioners that are on Zoom, or if the request was simply to email a link to Commissioner Grace, we can accommodate that as well. So Commissioner Grace, maybe you'd like to tell us your preference.
Mr. Chairman and Kurt, I'm happy to read it. I don't mean to take the commission's time, the staff time for someone to read it. I just wasn't sure how to access it. I didn't see it in the packet, and again, I just wanted to be respectful of a member of the public who wrote in.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Clerk.
Commissioner Grace, that link has just been emailed to you.
Okay.
So while we give you just a second to do that, Is Kurt, question for you in terms of process, since we kind of went back to public testimony a little bit, would it be fair to give the applicant an opportunity to respond to that specific?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so I don't, unless I, as I said, I had a sidebar conversation, so I don't
Mhm.
think I missed this piece, but I believe the public hearing is still open.
Yes.
Correct? So I think we should complete all public testimony. That there may not be others, but you may want to ask one more time.
Mhm.
Once that is done, then I would recommend, as we would typically do, invite the applicant via Zoom in this instance to make her closing comments, and would encourage her to address some of the concerns that were voiced by the citizens that testified tonight, both in person and by email and by letter.
To be, just to make sure I'm on the right page, we did not close anything. We already did allow the applicant to come back up and then
Got it. And
read the email. Would it be kosher to allow them to respond solely to that email since they've already covered other testimony?
yes, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that we give the applicant an opportunity to speak again, since we have new information that he was not aware of at the time she made her comments.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to come back up to respond to any of that testimony that was in that red email?
Yes, I would. Just a couple things that I would like to touch on is one of them, I do know that she had mentioned that our trash can was backed up to her property line. We actually have moved that, and you can see that in our updated site plan that is currently on your guys' screen. We had moved it to our optional location that we had set aside because we were unsure of where we wanted to put it. So we did take that comment from her into consideration, and we did move that based on staff's recommendation as well. And there is a recycling bin inside of that. So there will be trash and recycling inside that. And then as far as the clear vision triangle, we're not actually putting anything on her property. It's just a clear vision triangle for us just means we can't plant anything in that buffer. We're not going to plant a tree that's going to hinder somebody from seeing onto the road. It's just something that ACHD requires, and it's something that is code. I mean, we never put trees in a clear vision triangle, but I understand the way they're shown on there. It kind of looks like we may be putting something on her property, but we aren't putting anything. It's just for us to know and for you guys to see that we don't have any excessively large trees planted in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now take a motion to close the public hearing unless there are any questions for the applicant from commissioners. Should have worded that differently. Are there any questions remaining for staff or applicant? All right, Chair would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? I'll let, if anyone wants to express any thoughts on this.
Mr. Chairman, I'll take a shot at going first here. I want to thank the applicant actually in that last statement, because that was going to be a follow-up question of mine regarding the trash dumpster location. So thank you for clarifying that. I do understand the testimony and concerns of the citizens about the traffic and the increased activity there. But I think, as we all know, multifamily is sorely needed. It doesn't appear to be a terribly large project. I think it's a good fit for that corner. I would like to see, if possible, some connection, to the west, to that kind of street that's not an arterial street like Locust is, or certainly Franklin. So I think all in all, I like what I saw. I like the elevations and the explanation for that, and the fit for that area. So yeah, I think I'll be supporting this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Grace, are there any other feedback from commissioners? Any discussion? I guess I'll just echo Commissioner Grace's thoughts. Ideally, I would like to see a secondary access point along this road. But we can't, force that property owner to, do anything here. So there's not much control we have over that other situation. It's really about this proposal that's in front of us. And I agree. I think it's on net a good fit. I think the developers made a lot of efforts to fit the feedback put forward by the council. And yeah, I think this is a net good. I agree. Multifamily housing is sorely needed. This is a weirdly shaped parcel, but I think all in all things considered, this is a good fit for the time and place. With that, unless there's any other discussion, I would Chair would entertain a motion at this point. If no one wants to take a crack at it, I can.
I'm trying to find my,
I believe Commissioner Rivera is going to take a crack at it.
okay, that'd be great.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H-2023-0048 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of November 16th, 2023. With there weren't any modifications, was it, on this?
Unless you have any, I don't believe. Can I get a second?
Yeah, I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. With that, I would like to open up the public hearing for item number H-2023-0054 for Chick-fil-A. We will begin with the staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The applicant is here to present their application for a conditional use permit for Chick-fil-A. The site consists of 2.36 acres of land, currently zoned CG, located at 602 South Vanguard Way. The history on the property is currently a development agreement, a final plat, and a private street application that was approved. The comprehensive flume designation is commercial. A conditional use permit request for a new approximately 5,872 square foot Chick-fil-A, including a drive-through, full fire escape lane, 2 exterior drive-through canopies located within 300 feet of an existing drive-through facility, residential district, and existing residents. The proposed drive-through establishment is subject to the specific use standards in the UDC for the drive-through establishment. All establishments providing drive-through service are required to identify the stacking lane, menu, and speaker location, if applicable, and window location on the site plan. The site plan is also required to demonstrate safe pedestrian and vehicular access and circulation on the site and in between adjacent properties. Staff finds that the parking stalls to the north or south should be restricted for employee parking only to maximize pedestrian safety. Additionally, staff recommends that the applicant incorporate a pedestrian walkway from the easternmost parking area through the middle of the parking lot, leading to the front of the building to facilitate safe pedestrian access. You can see that staff has proposed where that might be located, but that can be up to the applicant as where that fits best on the site. The proposed site layout for the restaurant includes a dual drive-through lane with space to queue 37 vehicles and a third fire escape lane provided on the outside of the entire length of the drive-through. The drive-through itself starts at the north side of the building and exits at the south side, facing South Innovation Lane. However, staff has some safety concerns regarding the entry to the drive-through from the north. At the entrance of the drive-through, vehicles will be entering, exiting the drive-through while vehicles are attempting to park or back out of the parking stalls along the northern boundary. Staff recommends that the entry exit on the north should be designated as an entrance only for the drive-through to clearly mark and direct traffic flow. Further, staff recommends that the applicant shall install additional signage and parking lot striping to clearly mark and guide traffic safely throughout the site, which they have actually done. Chick-fil-A operations utilize a drive-through system featuring a door with a built-in pickup window. Additionally, employees serve customers as food runners within designated areas in or around the drive-through lanes. Customers have multiple options for placing orders in the drive-through. They can either use digital menu boards with speakers or directly engage with employees equipped with handheld computer pads and portable receipt printers. Employees are equipped to take all methods of payment in the drive-through area. Once the order is placed using one of the above methods, the customer will proceed to move forward in the queue, approaching the order pickup area at the drive-through. At this point, an employee will then or a runner will deliver the customer their order to their vehicle and direct cars safely through the drive-through exit. Development of the site shall comply with the development standards for the CG zoning districts in the UDC table. Staff has reviewed the proposed plan and building elevations, and they comply with the required standards. The property is currently located across multiple property lines. Staff has recommended that the applicant submit a property boundary adjustment to combine all three properties into one prior to submitting for a certificate of zoning compliance. The site includes 3 access points from South Innovation Lane, a private street located on the eastern side of the property. Vehicles accessing the site can do so from the northeast, east, or southeast and have the option to park in the lot in front of the building or proceed northwest to one of the first 2 inner 10-foot drive-through lanes. These lanes are equipped with menu boards, ordering, and allowing for exiting back to the drive aisle in the southeast direction. The 3rd lane farthest from the building serves as an escape lane leading to the drive aisle along the south side of the building. Again, to improve traffic flow and minimize confusion, staff has recommended that the first entrance at the northeast corner should be an entrance only. While staff recommends approval of all 3 drive-through lanes for this project to accommodate the volume of business that Chick-fil-A generates, Commission ultimately has the authority to determine whether it's appropriate for this project. So parking, a minimum of one off-street parking space is required per 250 square feet gross floor area based on the 5,872 square foot restaurant. A minimum of 23 parking spaces are required. A total of 96 spaces are proposed, exceeding the standards. A minimum of 1 bicycle parking space must be provided for every 25 vehicle spaces or a portion thereof per the UDC. Biking facilities are required to comply with the location and design standards. Bicycle parking is shown on the plan submitted with this application that meets the requirement. The applicant has also provided a detail recently of the bicycle racks that they are proposing on the revised landscape plan. And that actually does not meet our 34-foot-inch height requirement. Theirs was 33. Street buffers. The street buffer along South 10 Mile Road and South Vanguard Way was constructed with their improvements for the 10 Mile Creek subdivision number 1 for the common area site improvements. The buffer along South 10 Mile Road is required to be 35 feet wide as part of the entry corridor. The applicant has submitted a revised plan that shows that these meet the UDC requirements. The parking lot landscaping is required per the standards in the UDC. Several planters within the parking lot are missing trees and a planter is missing adjacent to the trash enclosure. And additionally, previously it appeared that the central landscape island that runs along Innovation Lane did not meet the 5-foot width requirement. Staff did recommend increasing the size of that planter and recommended adding the additional trees. The applicant we did receive a revised plan from the applicant addressing the missing trees and increasing the size of the planter and also adding the planter adjacent to the trash enclosure. The building elevations, conceptual elevations that were submitted for the proposed structure consist of stucco parapet metal wall coping, thin brick, metal awnings and glazing. And the final design is required to comply with the 10-mile crossing design guidelines. And the applicant did provide us with that approval this week. There is no written testimony on this project, and staff does recommend approval of the conditional use permit. That includes all of the conditions and the findings in the staff report. And that concludes staff's presentation, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to come up? And if you could state your name and address, that would be great. Thank you.
My name is Kevin Watson, 20547 Friends Road, Greenleaf, Idaho. Go ahead and start. I think I had a small presentation. Stacy, is that? Awesome. Well, I'd just like to thank the commission for hearing us tonight. I appreciate you guys being here to hear this proposal. We're really happy. Chick-fil-A is very excited to be presenting the second Chick-fil-A to the city of Meridian. I think it's going to be great to serve the citizens here. And we've had a chance to have sit downs with Stacy and Bill and Nick Napoli earlier in the process, and they've been extremely informative and helpful, helping us get to this point. So I've got a brief presentation that I wanted to share so you guys kind of get some visuals of what we're proposing here. This is our landscape plan, which is revised. Thank you, planning staff, for including our revised plans in this. We spent some extra time to try and get as many of these things wrapped up before we met with the commission. Just want to note that we are planning on protecting all of the existing landscaping along 10 Mile Road and around the corner on Vanguard Way. So everything there is either going to be protected or replaced in like kind if anything is affected by our development. Got some renderings that turned out really great, just to give everyone an idea of what this is going to look like once we're all done. This is our view looking northeast from 10 Mile Road. Got the other side view looking southeast from 10 Mile Road. Got a view looking north from Vanguard Way, right near the corner of 10 Mile. And we've got a great image of the front of our building there from the northeast corner of the site. So again, it was mentioned we're providing 96 parking stalls. We've provided directional signage and striping throughout the site. We've got a safe pedestrian access from Vanguard Way, located right there adjacent to Vanguard, going right up to the front of the restaurant. We're really happy that we were able to address most of the conditions on the conditions of approval and get those taken care of and corrected before we got here. But there are a few conditions that we would like to go over with the commission. First, I'm sorry. The first condition that we wanted to address was condition 2B. Condition 2C requests the northmost access to be designated as a entrance only and the drive aisle to be one way. We asked a local traffic engineering firm, Kittleson and Associates, to take a look at this and just kind of assess how this would affect safety and circulation on our site. I have a copy of the circulation memo here, if you guys would like to see it, or I can just go through the.
Gosh, that best be.
If you would give a copy to the clerk and they will distribute it. And then, yeah, you probably should summarize it since we don't have an advanced copy. Thank you.
Yeah, just to summarize what the traffic engineer stated in the report, the engineering firm supports two-way access on that north access there. They noted that contrary to the intent of the city by designating it as a one-way drive aisle, having it a one-way drive aisle might actually make it more challenging and confusing for drivers on there. As you can see, we've got 3 north-south drive aisles. If we were to make that a one-way drive aisle, it might be pretty challenging to effectively sign, stripe, and enforce that there would be no right-hand turns at any one of those drive aisles. Any car might make a mistake and turn up one of those drive aisles expecting to exit the site, and they'd be forced to either turn around or maybe turn back into the drive-through queue or turn and make a wrong way movement and head out that north exit. Another thing that's noted by the transportation engineer is that that north bank of stalls is intended for employee parking. At any one time, there's 15 stalls up there. Most of the time, there's going to be more than 15 employees. During any of the peak hours of business, those stalls are going to be used by employees, and there's not going to be cars backing out of those stalls and interfering with traffic coming on site. Another item that the traffic engineer notes is just that this is a fire lane. It's designated a 24-foot fire lane. Restricting that to one-way motion could limit the accessibility for emergency vehicles. Also, a large lane at 25 feet, people generally look at that as a two-way aisle. It's pretty large for a one-way. It'd be kind of confusing for drivers to see it and think it's going to be a one-way. And the traffic engineer also notes that it kind of encourages people to enter the site at a higher rate of speed by having so much extra room. Another good note on this is for our deliveries and our trash hauler. The trash hauler especially requires a front head-on entrance to the trash enclosure, which is located at the north of the site there by the entrance to the drive-through. The best route for the trash hauler is going to be come in that south entrance, head straight north into the trash enclosure, pick up the trash, and then back up a short distance and turn right and head out of that northmost access point. If we were to close that off to one way, the trash, I'm not sure if the trash hauler would be able to do it. Most of the trash companies have a requirement about how far they're able to back up, and they've also got limited turn radius. So this would present a pretty significant issue for us with our trash pickups by having it reduced to a one-way only. I think one thing that Chick-fil-A really excels at, and they're the industry leader in, is that they provide a great speed of service and safe circulation of vehicles and pedestrians throughout the site. Chick-fil-A's invested a lot of time and effort to get this right, and they've been proven to get it right in city after city, and they've been improving consistently. So by having this restriction, we kind of restrict Chick-fil-A's ability to do what it does best, and that's to manage their traffic on site in the most efficient and safest way possible. So we would ask that the commission remove condition 2C from the conditions of approval.
Sir, may I interject just for one moment? And Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I just want both for the record, but also for Commissioners Myers and Grace, the city clerk has scanned the letter from the traffic engineer, Kittleson and Associates. And that's been forwarded to both of you electronically so that you have it available to you. So I just wanted the record to reflect that our commissioners that are joined by Zoom do have the letter and are able to review it, and wanted you to be aware of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The next one we'd like to address is condition 6. Condition 6 would request that a boundary line adjustment be completed prior to submittal for the certificate of zoning compliance. When we first started this project, the planning staff did mention that they would prefer if we combine this lot and combine the 3 parcels into one. But they did say that it wasn't a requirement unless there was a permanent structure built over one of the parcel lines. So we took that, since we didn't have a permanent structure built over the parcel lines, to mean that we wouldn't be required to do it. We in fact have no problem complying with this condition. We just have one issue with the timing of it. It would cause pretty significant delays to our project to be required to complete this prior to the certificate of zoning compliance. So we would ask that the commission revise this condition to state that we must complete the property boundary line adjustment prior to permit issuance.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and staff's good with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, condition 2G, back towards the beginning. Request that a pedestrian crossing is added to the site plan from the east boundary of the site adjacent to Innovation Lane to the front of the building. We believe that the code section reference with this condition 11-4-3-11, specifically subsection C requiring safe vehicular and pedestrian access and circulation, is actually met by our safe pedestrian access from Vanguard Way on the south of our site, as well as the significant striping and signage that we've provided throughout the site. But we understand the intent of the city is to provide a site that circulates well, is safe for pedestrians, and is effective. So when we look at other similar recent developments in the area, like the new Starbucks located at 113 10 Mile Road, just north of our site, we see a really well circulating lot, works efficiently, safe pedestrian access, but it doesn't have a specified pedestrian walkway from anywhere in the lot to the front of the building. I think we understand that pedestrians kind of intuitively know how to walk through parking lots and will choose the safest route through, especially if the site is circulating well. Additionally, we believe that the site will be better served with the additional parking provided by there would be 5 spaces that would be removed if we were to add that central walkway. We think that it's actually safer for us to have those 5 spaces rather than to have potentially cars circulating through the lot looking for a parking space. Chick-fil-A intends on having upwards of 45 to 50 employees, especially in those busy first grand opening times. And they're going to be taking up a lot of parking spots. I think we're going to be needing as many parking spots as possible on this site. And I think it presents a greater hazard to have cars circulating around the site looking for a spot to park than actually pedestrians being able to walk safely to the front of the building. With these points in mind, we would like the condition 2G to be revised to strike the first sentence and read: the pedestrian walkways from the perimeter sidewalk to the main building entrance shall be distinguished from the vehicular driving surface through the use of pavers, colored or scored concrete, or bricks as set forth in UDC 11-3A-19B.4b. Which we have made that adjustment to our site plan with our safe pedestrian access as stamped concrete. Finally, I think we already have reached an understanding on this with our building elevations as we've received design approval, but the condition does read: the conceptual elevation shall incorporate a more pronounced parapet change to enhance the design on the west facing side along South 10 Mile Road in contrast to the current proposal. Since we have received design approval, and I believe that was prior to planning staff making this condition, we've received approval post planning staff making this condition, we would ask that condition 7 be revised to read: final design is required to comply with the adopted TM crossing design guidelines, and strike the first sentence. And I believe the last one that we would like to address, and I think we've also already come to understanding with planning staff, that condition 2B requests additional signage and striping throughout the site. As planning staff noted, we have provided this striping and signage throughout the site. So we would request that condition be revised to read: strike the word additional and just read: signage and parking lot striping is required throughout the site to efficiently and adequately direct patrons to the menu boards and throughout the site with minimal conflict as shown on the approved site plan. And I believe those are all of them that we wanted to go over. Once again, I thank the commission for your time and consideration.
Any commissioners have questions?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your condition 7 request? Elevations.
Yeah. Oh, condition 7. So we would request that the condition 7 be revised to read final design. It's basically strike the first sentence and we requested it read final design is required to comply with the adopted TM crossing design guidelines.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Grace?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Rivera, were you done? I didn't mean to cut you off, sir.
I believe, yeah, Commissioner Rivera, I
Okay.
believe was done.
Yes, sorry, yes,
Um,
I'm done, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I turned on my camera. I have the benefit of seeing you, but you can't see me, so I thought it was only fair to turn my camera on. So, Mr. Watson, I know probably isn't fair to project this onto you and your project, but I feel like we've got to do a little better than we did with the Chick-fil-A in the village, and I think mostly that, in my opinion, that revolves around the traffic concerns. And I like what you're saying about, it seems like there's more lanes. And I thought I heard you could handle 37 vehicles, which I'm guessing is more than what's probably available at the village Chick-fil-A. But as it relates to your request on 2C, can you confirm, so you want that north access to be both ways? I just was trying to look at the site plan here, and is the drive-through, does that directly flow south into the drive-through, that access area?
That north access does flow directly south into the drive-through area. And we'd like to clarify that functionally, this north access and that north drive aisle will likely operate as a one-way during peak hours. I don't know if you guys are familiar, and you're familiar with the Meridian location. We do provide much more stacking and a much, the site has been designed much better than that location, and we've got more stacking, better circulation on site. But one of the things is that site uses magnetic delineators, and I imagine you've seen them, the little posts that are in the parking lot, and they help direct the drive-through traffic. Those are removable, and they're used during their high volume peak hours to kind of direct traffic in the way it limits traffic flow on site during those high intensity hours. And then during the off peak times, they're able to remove them to restore better circulation on site. I think that what we're asking for is not that we always want the north access drive aisle to be continuously two-way, is that we want the operator to be able to be flexible with that and to be able to limit it, maybe add in magnetic delineators and limit the access to that so that it does flow directly into the drive-through during those high volume times. But then at the same time, be able to remove that during the slow times so that we have access for the trash haulers, so that during quieter hours, people aren't restricted in their movements on the parking lot.
Okay, I'm going to ask my other question, but as it relates to 2C, I think I'd like to hear from the city on that, but let me just ask my other question and then I'll stop talking. On 2G, I feel like there's probably a reason why we're looking for that walkway. I was confused as to you were saying strike the first sentence, which basically says to incorporate a pedestrian walkway, but to leave the second, which says the pedestrian walkway from the perimeter sidewalk shall be distinguished. So can you just clarify that for me?
Yeah, I believe the second sentence also refers to our southern pedestrian safe access point. If you look to the south at the exit of our drive-through, that's also a safe pedestrian access from Vanguard Way. I think we understood that that second half of the condition to also apply to that pedestrian access. And so we did not want to strike the whole condition, as we definitely understand that having a change in material or texture there to really make sure we're signifying that that's a safe pedestrian crossing is important. And we revised our plans to show the stamped concrete that we plan on putting there.
So that second part of that condition relates to a different pedestrian walkway then, is what you're saying?
Yeah, we understood that condition to relate to all pedestrian crossings on the site and not only the one that was being asked for through the central portion of the site from Innovation Lane, but also from the south portion, the south area of the site along Vanguard.
Okay, thank you. And the other conditions, I'd like to hear from others, but I don't know that I have too much heartache over them. But I think I would like to hear from staff if they had any comment at all about the request on 2C. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Staff like to comment on 2C?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, staff had put that condition in because we just wanted to see safe pedestrian access through the parking lot, because we know how busy Chick-fil-A gets, just to make sure that people had a safe way to get from the parking lot to the building. That was our thoughts on that and how we feel about that, but it is up to commission how they see it and want to condition this project.
Wait, that's the 2G ask, right? That was
Right.
And
Thank you. I was really hoping for an opinion on 2C regarding the one-way. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Grace. So the one-way, staff wants to see that because all the traffic is flowing into the drive-through area. And then if you have, like they said, really busy times that people are going to be driving north and trying to get out that way, and it's going to kind of create some safety issues for people, or people pulling out from the north, but they said that they were going to designate that as employee parking.
Thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
I actually do have questions on 2G though. And I guess my question is mainly of Kurt. There's the applicants, don't correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth. It sounds like they're saying that they are already in compliance without the proposed, without the proposed additional pedestrian walkway down the middle of the parking lot. Is that your interpretation of that statute as it's applied? And is that consistent with kind of how the city has operated up to this point?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Really, that's a judgment call for the commission. I would answer or add a couple thoughts. One is that, so the city's development code does require pedestrian safety from the parking lot to the building. And so that's a requirement of code. The commission and the applicant needs to adhere to that code requirement. We can't just waive that. In terms of what constitutes compliance, that there's no bright line there. It's really going to be a judgment for the commission. And I would say that even if, for argument's sake, the applicant is correct that what they propose meets the minimum requirements of the code, I would also know that the commission has the authority with the conditional use permit to require something in excess of the minimum based upon specific site conditions and issues going on with this particular development. So even if you believe that the proposal before you meets the minimum intent of the code, you do have the ability to condition something more to mitigate the potential negative impacts of the project being proposed. But ultimately, I'm going to probably punt back to you and say it's going to be the commission's decision as to whether or not this is the applicant's version creates enough safe pedestrian connections.
Okay, thank you. So I guess my question then goes to the applicant. Looking at this map here, let me pick a spot near the innovation lane. There's a circle that's with a 4 in it. Just south of it. That's the first parking spot south of that entrance and exit point. How do you anticipate, absent a pedestrian walkway, a pedestrian could safely get from there to that Chick-fil-A?
Well, I think we believe that the major points of circulation are going to be kind of in that highlighted fire lane, entering the drive-through, exiting the drive-through, entering the site, exiting the site. I think we would expect that most of the traffic is going to be coming along those lanes. So I would think, just as I would do at any grocery store or Target or Home Depot, that I'd get out of my car and I'd look both ways and make sure that a car wasn't driving through the drive aisle, and I would walk directly towards the restaurant. I think most of the time, in my experience, I don't go looking for a safe pedestrian walkway through a Home Depot or through a large parking lot. I generally think that most pedestrians intuitively know, and I think generally drivers know, that when you're driving through a parking lot, you're going to have cars that potentially might back out. You're going to have pedestrians who are walking through, and it is just a general expectation that that safety should be kind of the top priority for both drivers and pedestrians in that situation. I'd like to note that I just also believe that removing those 5 parking spots, while it would be nice to just add a extra pedestrian path there, I think that removing those 5 spots will actually decrease the level of safety on the site, and that the site will be better served, safer, circulate better with those spots, and with less of a chance of people circulating around the site, potentially looking for a parking spot. People tend to get impatient when they don't find a parking spot. So I think ideally we want to provide a spot for everyone who's there to park. And I think once they park and they get out of their car, they're going to be able to arrive safely to the front of the restaurant.
So I have an additional question, but I want to address something that you said regarding other stores, other grocery stores. To my understanding, especially for big box stores, the standard tends to be for this this kind of parking schematic to be kind of rotated 90 degrees almost, so that the cars back out parallel to the building and not perpendicular to them. And what that does, if you're thinking like a Home Depot, for example, you're walking alongside the backs of the cars to get to the store, and you're minimally walking through the drive aisle. And it seems like that's not the case here, which is, sorry, I'm moving close and far away from this. That doesn't seem to be the case here. And so I'm really concerned by the movement of people down a drive aisle. Obviously, there are conflict points crossing a drive aisle. That's inherent to any design. But it seems to me that if you are walking down a drive aisle, that entire drive aisle becomes a conflict point. And that's my concern here. I understand the concern of the parking stalls and things like that, but that's kind of the main concern here. So I'll give you an opportunity to address that, but I also want to ask an additional question regarding the one-way fire lane, specifically around refuse removal. If the concern is refuse removal with the way that these are loaded, and I guess this is also a question for staff, if there's anything preventing the applicant from doing so, is there anything preventing swapping some of those employee parking spaces on the south side with the waste receptacle on the north side? Seems like that would allow a refuse removal truck that's front loaded, or regarding those issues, seems like that would allow for that while not changing any parking structure kind of calculus.
Can I respond, or does staff want to respond?
Are there any?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, there isn't anything that prevents them from moving the trash receptacles to the south. They may just lose more parking stalls, which I don't know if it's ideal for them, but they have plenty of parking per our requirements for a restaurant, but I know how busy they get.
So if I can add to that, the trash truck usually does require a straight-on, head-on delivery. Looking at the site, we would have to confirm with the trash hauler, since the parking stalls and our drive-through is offset a bit. we could potentially put the trash enclosure there, but it would be offset, and I'm not sure if the trash hauler would approve of that location. Secondly, and I don't know, I know that we were subject to kind of a higher level of design guidelines and screening for our trash enclosure as one of the comments from John Wardle with the 10-mile crossing design review board, that we added additional landscaping and additional trees around the trash enclosure for screening purposes. It's part of the guidelines for that development. I don't know what he would say about moving the trash enclosure to a very highly visible area right near the corner of 10 Mile and Vanguard. I know that during our meetings and discussions about design, it was very important to them to make sure that that corner looked really good and that we had great landscaping there, great screening, that we provided a small wall along the outside of our drive-through to help with screening. So I don't know that John Wardle is here tonight to be able to comment on that, but my understanding is I think you would not be as excited about that location for the trash enclosure.
Thank you. So it seems to me then this boils down to a question of time of use, really. If this is, as you were saying, the applicant being, or the Chick-fil-A being able to use cones and traffic cones and things like that to redirect traffic during peak hours, to me, that seems to be bad design. And I want to give you an opportunity to address that, because when I see that and I see, you know, I'm driving against the way that the traffic arrow is pointed because some orange cones are set up in kind of a space, it seems to me that that is, you know, has high potential to confuse a driver, has high potential to create conflict zones of someone not understanding whether they're able to operate their vehicle, you know, in that direction, et cetera. And I also think that there's some concerns I've seen, whether it's other Chick-fil-A's, other In-N-Outs, other kind of high demand restaurants that implement this. It seems like that has high potential to also kind of turn into, from what I've seen, one day you go and the entry point is at site A, and you know the next time you go there, the entry point's at site B because of the way that the kind of the traffic needs to snake to stay off like the main road, for example. And so I think to my mind, it seems like that has high potential to create confusion, to create more conflict opportunities with people trying to understand exactly where they're supposed to be going based on time of day, what entrance to use, and things like that. I guess could you speak to that?
Yeah, and I can understand that concern. I think it would be my opinion that magnetic delineators that are placed temporarily, those are going to be highly visible and they're going to be in your path and they're going to be blocking your path. That may seem somewhat confusing, but if you were to start heading north there, you know, you could turn right into the drive aisle and head off site, or you could go any which direction you're required to if you didn't realize that that was not the way to go. I think a sign being placed at every single one of these intersections, which is likely what would be required to try and enforce and try and stripe and sign this appropriately to limit it to a one-way. I think people are more likely to miss a sign located in a planter than they are to miss something blocking their path that's bright and that's in the road. I think everyone understands that cones in the road means don't drive there. So as far as the level of confusion that might be induced, I think signs are more likely to confuse people and more likely to, you'd be more likely to have wrong way movements in that drive aisle rather than magnetic delineators. And I think the city's intent and concern there, I think is valid. What we're asking is that the operator have the flexibility to be able to handle that on site, because he wants it to be handled and safe as well. It's just different times of day can require different things, and that's why those magnetic delineators are a good option for that.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have any other questions before we move on to testimony?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on that last exchange. So if it's a off-peak hour and you're saying you could really benefit from that north access point being both ways. I guess what I'm thinking is if it's off-peak, why does it really matter? I mean, there'll be I think the benefit you get is when you're in peak hours, and basically I don't think anyone's going to be able to exit there. I think you'll have, based on my reading of what the community, the affection it has for Chick-fil-A in peak hours, you're going to have a lot of cars going in there. I guess I was just questioning what's the value if it is off peak. There's two other places to come and go, but you don't have to answer that. I'm just more thinking out loud if you don't want to.
Yeah, Sabrina, this is our representative from Chick-fil-A Development Lead.
Could I get your address as well?
2220 Denver Street, San Diego, California, 92110. Sabrina Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commission and staff. I just wanted to clarify and help. There's been a lot of talk around traffic. As Kevin has done a great job pointing out, we do have operators, individual operators who own and operate individually in the community and bring employees in. The traffic concerns, we just want to give them the flexibility. We completely understand the innate nature of people wanting to go one way into our drive-through lane. We're just asking for the flexibility so that during off-peak times, you know, we know we're going to be busy from those noon to or 11 to 2 o'clock times and maybe in the evening, but in the off-peak times to help our customers who are parking and then our employees who are also getting out, that both-way access in that north drive is pretty critical just in those other times of day. The magnet delineators that Kevin mentioned are a great tool for us to use. They're actually in ground, so they don't protrude. They come off and they go up when they're needed, and they just help that traffic flow. The operator, and additionally, will come through and make some additional changes as needed daily. I think that was one of the things that was mentioned was having the point of entry change. Our entry to our drive-through isn't going to change. Our stack is significant here. It's a double stack. It's 37 cars, almost 40 cars. There's not another stack like that around. Plus, we have a third escape lane that will help keep cars moving in and off. We generally, our speed of service comes in, you know, around under a minute. So, I mean, we're constantly having cars flow. So we understand the need to make sure that cars are moving both in and out and off of our lot. So just wanted to add that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Questions?
Yeah, it's,
Sure.
thank you, Commissioner. For someone that visits Chick-fil-A quite too often, I've been there twice this week already.
You and me both.
I appreciate the stack because, like I said, I'm there pretty often. My kids, but on this one, just real quick, I have a couple of questions. But there's 3 lanes into the drive-through, right? But the third lane is strictly just for the exit, like emergency.
That's correct. The city requires an escape lane for a drive-through over, I believe, 100 feet or a certain number of feet. So that third lane all the way around is to provide an escape lane. So we'll provide drive-through services all the way around through the inner 2 lanes, and the outer lane will be as an escape lane for any cars that might have gotten stuck in the drive-through.
I also was going to question where the trash, is located, but Commissioner Smith already addressed that. But I personally am in favor of having the flow of traffic go both ways, instead of just one way, just for the flow to be easier, in my opinion. And also, I also am in favor of having more parking spaces than not. I'd rather see better, compared to some of the other Chick-fil-A the Village, like better lighting in the parking lot, like days like now in the fall and where it gets dark earlier. Right there's no necessarily pedestrian, straight to the store, but it gets dark, and I think that's more of dangerous than I just don't see a lot of people following the pedestrian walkway. I'd rather have more parking spots but I'd rather have better lighting than adding that, but just something to, I don't see right here how much light is gonna be there, but I do like the two-way, have the lane be two-way, and then have more parking spaces than that. But other than that, I think, and I say that because I think the stacking is deep enough compared to some of the other stores where it was just probably not doable to add more. But I think it's deep enough, and for this section right here, and this area right here.
Thank you, Commissioner Rivera. We appreciate that. The lighting is shown on here. It's just a little bit difficult to see and it's not highlighted, but we do have two lights at the first island, kind of south of the center drive aisle, another light in the center of the next island to the east, and then a light as well. And then if you go south, they're kind of small in there and they're difficult to see, but we absolutely, and it's one of the things that we do as we're doing a construction set is go through, we look at our photometric and we make sure and address if any of the foot candles look too low in an area, especially around the drive-through and around the corners of the drive-through where vehicles are going through. Those areas that can get missed. And so we double check all of those to make sure that that we have really provided really good lighting, because you got to be able to see it. And same in the parking lot. So we're right there with you.
Yeah, it's just hard to tell right
Yeah,
here. but
they are difficult
I'm
to
sure
see.
you guys have addressed it, but I think strong, good, better lighting than prefer more parking spaces and better lighting for evenings, like when it gets dark really early.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant or staff from commissioners? All right, I will then move on to public testimony. Is there anyone? You guys can be seated. Anyone signed up?
No one signed up in person and I do not have a hand raised online.
Would anyone in the audience like to come testify? All right, seeing none. Okay, the applicant, would you like to, is there anything you'd like to come back up in closing or anything like that?
And in closing, I just want to thank you all. I want to thank all the effort staff has put in and worked with us to present a plan. I think one of the commissioners mentioned earlier the concerns over the previous Chick-fil-A Meridian. We learn from our lessons. We get better with each one. And this site it's a nice big site. We've addressed traffic concerns, parking concerns. We're trying to continue to get better as we develop, and we're very excited to have this second Chick-fil-A coming in Meridian. So thank you again for your time, and appreciate all your concerns.
Any other commissioners have questions? I have one additional one at the end. If you want to go for it.
No,
Fair?
I'm good.
Okay, sorry. I thought you were. Any other questions from other commissioners?
I don't have any questions.
All right. My question is, and I guess this is a question of fellow commissioners as well as the applicant. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page before we close the public hearing around what the specific asks are for the items in the staff report, especially if anyone is planning on making a motion.
Are there, sorry, commissioners, on the adjustments requested by the applicant, I guess to staff, are there any of those, the 2C, condition 6, 2G, are any of those out of, are they all like doable for in the eyes of staff and meeting our, plan or?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so the ones that they were asking to remove, staff had put those as conditions, so that would be actually your decision whether or not you wanted to keep them in or agree with the applicant to remove them or change them in some other form or way. And I believe they were removing 2C and was it 2G? I don't actually have the staff report in front of me.
That is my understanding. So,
Yeah, would you like me to go through specifically
Yeah.
our revisions?
yeah.
One of the things, that'd be helpful if you would.
Yeah.
And for our planning staff, Stacy in particular, as the applicant goes through, kind of summarizes the request, I do think there was agreement amongst staff and the applicant relative to at least a couple of these. I think it was items or conditions 6 and 7. So maybe you can make a note of that along the way so we can, for the commission's benefit, we can distinguish where there is agreement and where there is not agreement.
So the first one I mentioned was condition 2C. And we asked that the commission remove condition 2C. For condition 2B, I believe that planning staff already kind of concurred that we've provided the signage required and the striping required for safety on the site. So we requested just a revision in that condition so that it's a little more clear to remove the word additional from the beginning of the condition, and just say signage and parking lot striping is required throughout the site to efficiently and adequately direct patrons to the menu boards and throughout the site with minimal conflict as shown on the approved site plan.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, staff is good with that.
That's 2B.
Condition 6 is regarding, I believe we already had, we concur with staff on this one as well, that to adjust condition 6 to read, submit a property boundary adjustment to combine all 3 properties into one party or property. I'll not list each parcel, but remove prior to submitting for a certificate of zoning compliance, and change that to prior to issuance of building permits.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, staff is good with that.
Condition 7 as well, I think we already have reached agreement with staff, but we've asked to strike the first sentence on condition 7, just to make it more clear that there will be no more changes that are required to our elevations. And just state final design is required to comply with the adopted TM crossing design guidelines. And finally, condition 2G, we've requested that the first sentence of condition 2G be removed so that it reads, the pedestrian walkways from the perimeter sidewalk to the main building entrance shall be distinguished from the vehicular driving surface through the use of pavers, excuse me, colored or scored concrete or bricks as set forth in UDC 11-3A-19B.4b.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Seeing none, I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, sorry, please. I didn't actually hear anyone from Zoom. Could you say aye if you?
Aye,
in favor?
sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. Aye as well. Any opposed? Motion carries. So I'll just kind of give my thoughts on this. I mean, I kind of discussed it a bit already. I think I'd slightly prefer seeing that to be a one-way in that fire lane regarding the 2C request. I'm not, you know, there's just seeing it implemented elsewhere. I just don't think it's great design, and I think there's better opportunities. I also would agree with Commissioner Grace that the concern is peak hours, and it's going to be designated that way during peak hours. It seems like that would actually make the most sense anyway to reduce confusion. But I'm less concerned about that one as I am concerned with the request on 2G. I really do feel that there is a need for better pedestrian safety and better pedestrian interconnectivity within this, or I guess just not pedestrian connectivity within this parking lot. Just, you know, having gone to Chick-fil-A with nieces, nephews, young kids, with elderly family, parking lots, even well-designed parking lots, even, really great designed parking lots can be huge risk areas for those folks. And I think I would disagree with the idea that enhancing pedestrian safety with a walkway would create more opportunity for conflict. So I personally, and again, whoever makes the motion, is allowed to make the motion as they desire, but I really would like to see that walkway required. I think they are already pretty significantly exceeding parking requirements, and that is the updated parking requirements. So I think it looks like they're going to have a good amount of parking here, and so I don't know what the net cost to the operator in terms of clientele would be for that parking issue, but I do know if you can reduce the risk for pedestrians with a pretty simple fix, I think that's worth it. So that's just kind of my thoughts there. But I'll leave it up to the rest of the commission if anyone has any discussion or thoughts.
Mr. Chair, before we get too deep into your deliberations, the applicant testified we have a pretty good working relationship, and I think we could probably find some common ground on that pedestrian connectivity as we move through the CZC and design review process. But I want to be very clear. I think it is important to have something in that parking area for sure. Looking at their site design, it looks like some of their planter islands are larger than what code requires. So I think if we were just to finesse their site design a little bit more, I think we would probably lose less parking than what they think. If you would maybe potentially think about modifying that condition, I don't know how specific it is because I don't have the staff report either, but at the same time, just maybe add that they continue to work with staff on addressing the pedestrian circulation with the CCC process and allow us to continue to build on our relationships and make sure that we get that adequately addressed. I think that gives them some flexibility, gets them moving along, gets them gets them in front of staff again to try to make sure that we do get something else, another pedestrian connection out there in that central parking area. Because again, as Kurt mentioned, it's the code isn't black and white. It doesn't say thou shall do this. It says provide safe pedestrian. And so that's where all of us are working together to make sure that happens. And so that's where Stacy and I came up with our recommendation, felt that it was important enough here to do that just because the amount of trips this type of business generates. We know there's going to be a lot of people at this facility. So we want to make sure we get it right as well.
Thank you. I guess to that extent, I think maybe something like tweaking 2G to strike the words middle of the and the front of the in the first sentence to read incorporate a pedestrian walkway from the easternmost parking area through the parking lot leading to the building to facilitate safe pedestrian access. That might leave room for, finagling that through the parking lot however you want, but ensuring that connectivity is the same. I agree. I would really like to see something there. Whether it's a question of code requirements, if it's already in compliance, or just on kind of good policy grounds, I think that is one that I feel really strongly about. There does need to be something there.
And Mr. Chair, on the elevation requirement that was brought up, applicant is correct. The say is by the 10-mile crossing design review. There's a process for them to go through. Again, this is a conditional use permit. So again, we can impose certain things that we want to see. And so I had Stacy bring up this graphic because I don't think we're talking about a huge significant change to their elevation. If you look at this rendering here, you can see under the one parapet there, they have their signage and they have a nice cap on top of their ridge line there. It looks like it's the southwest corner of the building there. All we're saying is take that same treatment and do that on the farthest edge of the building there to break up the roof line. That's all we wanted to see. So hopefully the applicant can see that we're just trying to get a little bit more architectural detailing on a prominent roadway, which is 10-mile road, just like John Wardle wants for the development. So that, to me, it was a minimal ask to have that cap added to that corner. But again, it's in your purview, but I just want to let you know where staff was coming from on that particular requirement.
Cool. Any other questions or sorry, not questions, comments, discussion from other commissioners?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a few if I could.
Yeah, Commissioner Grace.
Sure. So I want to thank the applicant. I appreciate all the work they've done on this. And building a good relationship with the city and recognizing the challenges maybe that we've had with the, I guess, the first Chick-fil-A in Meridian. So I do want to thank them. I guess I feel less strongly about the pedestrian walkway than I did the request for 2C regarding the one-way north access point. I like staff's comment, I think, about 2G with regard to maybe having the applicant continue to work with staff to sort of finesse and address the pedestrian circulation. So I think if the applicant's good with that, that might be a good solution there. Let me just speak to 2C a little bit. As I understand it, the entire fire lane is not changing into or strike that. The city's not asking that the entire fire lane change into a one-way directional, but rather that north access point is only an entrance. And if that's correct, if it's not, someone throw a shoe at me and tell me I'm wrong. But if that's correct, then I think that's a good or an important point, that they're just asking that be an entrance access point. I really would like to avoid traffic cones and other temporary measures as much as we could. I do appreciate that the operator is going to be mindful and probably will make good decisions, safe decisions. I get that. I don't think that off peak it's going to be as big a deal as maybe is represented. I think most of those vehicles are going to exit that drive-through and go out the southmost exit. I think we're talking about a handful of parking spaces toward the north where they'll have a little further to go to get to that, maybe that middle access point. And so I don't want to get this wrong again either. And I don't think it's an unreasonable request by staff. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying I just feel a little more strongly about 2C. I like where maybe we're headed with 2G. And I was, I'm glad obviously that there appears to be some agreement on 6 and 7, conditions 6 and 7. And 2B, I guess I don't have a problem with striking the word additional there. So I don't know if we can all agree on the different requests. I'm not sure who's gonna write and say this motion, but that's sort of where I'm at with the requested changes.
Yeah, Commissioner Grace, I'd say I'm probably in agreement with kind of where you're coming from. I think what you're good with on G is kind of where I'm okay there. I think something being there is adequate terminology for staff to work with the applicant through, and ensuring that there's some connectivity. I also, thank you for pointing out the entrance only kind of language there. It actually does seem that if you were to pull up a map of the site, that trash refuse removal truck could come through the bottom entrance, collect the trash, and then loop back out that bottom exit through the drive aisle. So it does seem like that would be feasible. So I guess my only question is to staff, if having that entrance only, if that requires some amount of space for it to be one way, or if there's some requirement in code. Kurt, if you could speak to that as well, or if anyone knows if there's any requirements that that being entrance only also does, as a consequence, require that some strip be one way only. There's
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, they could angle their parking on the north so that the drive aisle was condensed smaller, but there isn't anything in code that says that it needs to shrink in particularly in size.
there's no requirements past, past the entry only. Other than that, there's no requirements on the drive aisle being one way only for any period of length or anything like that.
No.
Okay. Just wanted- Yeah, Commissioner Grace, I think I'm around to kind of where you're at as well on this. That helps when seeking to make a motion. Any other commissioners have thoughts? Would anyone like to make a motion or?
I think I'm clarification on 2G to work with applicant and staff to create something to reduce maybe some of those planters or the reduction of those islands to come up with some kind of a mutual agreement with a safety walkway. I'm on board with that for sure. I still don't see that on the 2C, it would be just that aisle that leads into the entry of the drive-through. Is that what we're proposing only as one way?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rivera, yes, it's just the north drive aisle that goes directly into the drive-through lanes.
So in between those, on that one aisle that leads into the entryway, there's 1, 2, 3. All those cars that are in between, if they go out that way, they're gonna have to make a left. They can't go right. They're all gonna have to make a left and then loop all the way around the exit if they're heading that way, right?
That is correct.
To clarify, I think like what we were speaking to is it doesn't need to be one way there. It's just you can't exit out of that direction. So if you're coming out, if you're in the drive aisle nearest, I keep forgetting the name of the road, is Innovation. If you're nearest Innovation, yeah, you would have to turn left. If you were closer to the Chick-fil-A, you could theoretically turn right to get down to those other drive aisles
And turn right.
and turn, out on any out of those the two bottom exits. It would, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, just from what I was asking of staff, is it seems like it's not one way. It's just you can't exit out of that location.
Right, but it's still one way from the entry all the way through. That entire aisle is still just one way.
It would be one way up until the end of that landscaping buffer, essentially, because that's the only direction you could still go out toward Innovation as long as you're not planning to exit that. You could go, if you want to follow the cursor, you could go out to Innovation, then turn right in that drive aisle before Innovation and go down there. There's nothing in code preventing it from being two-way, just as long as people aren't exiting that one driveway, the one at the very top right. So it could still theoretically have that flexibility. It's just the only point is that point of entry or exit, and it's not a requirement of one way or two way through that entire top drive aisle. It's just that kind of small space there.
Sorry. And is that the recommendation for that is because we fear that the congestion is going to be backed up?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rivera, yes. People coming from the south to the north, trying to exit that way, or if they're parked here, pulling out, trying to exit while there's multiple people trying to go through the drive-through, it could create some type of conflict, is what we are seeing.
Yeah, I just think it causes more confusion if we have it one way for cars coming up. And I think the driveway, it's deep enough in 37, the queue is quite deep, but
Mr. Chairman, can I add a comment? I don't, again, mean to interrupt Commissioner Rivera, but he made me think about something.
Sure, very.
Yeah. go
Yeah,
ahead.
you make a good point, Enrique. If all we're saying is that the entranceway there is got to be one way, but the entire lane can be both ways, I kind of feel like, what's the point? I mean, if there are going to be cars going east in that lane, but they can go as far as that last, lane going south, but they can't exit, so they got to go down that last lane going south. We're still creating we're still creating a log jam there. I guess, you make a good point, and I wasn't seeing that until maybe this landscape plan map came up where I could see this a little better. I don't know that we gain anything. I don't know, Jared, what do you think? If we just say, yeah, you can go east all the way, but you just can't exit. Does that, and during peak hours, does that really help when there's a lot of cars coming in to the drive-through heading west? I don't know.
Yeah, Commissioner Grace, I think to me, that's why I don't feel super strongly about this. It's kind of like, I wish I could wave a magic wand and just make it better. But it seems like all of the solutions, it's all trade-offs in one way or another. And so I think, it's really
So
a question
long
of,
as-
if we were to require that, would the operator, I mean, it seems like the operator would probably want to just make it one way, but that would kind of be up to them, it seems.
Yeah, I can see, Mr. Chairman, the operator putting cones right, I can't show you because I can't point to anything, but I could see them blocking that lane off right there. Yes. And when you're coming in to go to the drive-through, can you get to that southmost lane? If there are cars exiting there, I have a feeling he's going to block that off anyway. So I hate to go full circle on everyone right here during the meeting, but I guess this is why we have these meetings. But I'm wondering what the value is of saying you can go all the way, but you can't exit.
Yeah, Commissioner Grace, I think you're right. The more I'm thinking about it, I think, like I said, I still probably am slightly in favor of it kind of being one way there, but that's why I don't feel super strongly about it, and so I'm fine if that doesn't.
If you made the whole lane one way, I'm with you, but that's not what staff recommended, and I probably don't want to go that far.
Sure, Bear, did you have discussion?
No, like I said, and then we have, the other two both ways. I just don't see why we have all three of them. Like I said, I think it's going to cause more congestion if we go out that way, and you can only make it right. You can only make it left.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, staff's recommendation is the entire drive lane be one way, not just that entrance. So if there was any confusion, we apologize, but that's not the intent of the condition. But you do bring up, I mean, all of the, that's why we brought it up, because again, we know how busy it is. We know the conflict point. It's just when we see the northern drive aisle and how you have to jog to the left to get into the the closest drive-through lane, that's where we see the conflict right there. Is now, if that's stacked up, then cars are going to try to weave out around a bunch of cars that are stacking there. I'm not saying it's going to be stacked up all the time. You're absolutely right. It's not going to, and with the amount of the stacking they have, this is probably more than I've seen on any drive-through in Meridian. So again, it's hard to say whether it will work or not, but we just have to point out those conflict points. And to me, that's the conflict. But to your point, if you go one way, then you create other conflicts because the people backing out of the employee parking, how are they now? We're forcing them to enter the traffic that's also trying to get into the drive-through, and they have to try to weave in out of traffic where they could be blocked. Or to your point, then what if someone goes the wrong way, and then we still have openings into the parking, to the central parking area from that one-way drive aisle, which will again, people that want to back out of their space and go north, they exit out of the north. Now they can't because it's one way. Now they got to do a 3-point turn and try to go the other way to get out of the site. So again, there's ways to design this and make it work. But again, when we met with the applicant, we asked them to put planter islands and block it all off and do all of those things to try to minimize those impacts, and they did not want to do that. They wanted to come forward with this design that you see tonight. Again, we tried to isolate that parking completely from the exit and entrance lanes of that drive-through so that everything would be walled off, and that you had one entrance point off of Innovation Lane and everyone exited from that parking area out of that central area. So you did not have those conflicts. But that's the only way that I could see this functioning. If we wanted to, in a perfect world, that's how we had kind of communicated to the applicant. And I still think what they're showing here and based on how they're going to operate, it still could function what you see tonight. It's just depending on whether or not you have that comfort level moving forward with this conditional use permit.
I could see that whole north parking, all the parking spaces on the north be angled parking when you come in. So then when they pull out, then you can't try to go do this, right? You have to go out that way. And that way it'll leave, and leaving the two things like this, but have that whole north be angled parking. You come in like that instead of.
And that will lose some parking because that's a little bit different dimensional standards there. But
right, but I'd rather lose
that does
parking over
minimize
there
some of
than-
that back out across.
Right, that way-
you start stack there, absolutely.
Right, that way, I'd rather lose a couple parking spots there, but you don't have people trying to back out and go this way to cause a traffic jam.
So can I, Mr. Chairman, can I just get clarity from Bill maybe? So you were saying with that condition 2C that that entire lane be one way, not just the entrance and exit area. Is that accurate?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that's accurate. It's just
Okay.
not that entrance. It was the whole thing.
Okay.
With double arrows going right into the drive-through, funneling that, because that's the driveway into the drive-through lane. So from our standpoint, that was the easiest way to minimize the conflict rather than add a bunch of landscape requirements and have them lose a bunch of different. We were just trying to try to make a quick, easy fix. But like I said, I appreciate the applicant bringing this Kittleson study because we don't see that very much, and we're in the middle of changing drive-through standards. So I may steal this from you and maybe make that a requirement. If you want something different, you provide a traffic study or some kind of analysis on how this is going to flow. I appreciate that. I think you educated me a little bit tonight, so I do appreciate you going through that work to show how your site works. But again, it's your purview tonight. But again, I could see definitely conflicts with the trash trucks and all those things that were brought up for sure. So again, I like the suggestion of the angle parking. I think that minimizes some of the conflicts for at least the employees that want to get out of there. If there is some stacking there, at least they can merge a little easier and not have to worry about having such a tight turn or area to get out of the parking space. It's shorter radius to get out.
I think even the customers and employees,
Mr. Chairman, one question maybe for staff, if they know, if the operator operated the site for a certain amount of time and then said, you know what, I would rather make that one way and install signs and whatnot. Could he do that? Is there a process he could go through to? I assume there is, but I just would like to put that on the record if he could.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Grace, yes, they could apply for a certificate of zoning compliance to make the changes. They would be small.
I don't want to take away the ability for someone to manage properly the property. You know, he might say to his employees, look, if you're going to be getting off shift at 6:30, 7 o'clock on a Friday night, I wouldn't park there. You know, they're going to manage. I want to give them the ability to operate and manage it. And you know, so I don't want to take that away. So I guess, yeah, it's either all or nothing. If the whole lane is blocked as one way or it's not. And, you know, I'd rather fall on the side of giving people the freedom to do what they think is best.
Yeah, Commissioner Grace, I think I'm been swayed that direction as well. It helps. Yeah, it's just a tough little spot. And I'm sure if this is blocked off, there's probably trade-offs there that arise as well. So I'm kind of a shrug on this at this point. Anyone like to make a motion?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I know we're probably not supposed to take like straw votes and polls and things, but I just want to make sure. We seem to be good on, I saw 5 requests for revision of the conditions. We seem to be good on revision number 6, revision 2B. We seem to be all, maybe it sounded like in favor of 2G, adding some language to continue to work with staff. I think maybe we'll wait till someone makes the motion, but I think we maybe have reached resolution on 2C of at least in my mind of granting that request. And then number 7, it was a request to strike the first sentence. I felt like, given staff's comment about that, by leaving in the second sentence, we're going to accomplish what staff wanted, which is, the final design is required to comply with the guidelines. I feel like there'll be the opportunity there for the applicant to, I don't know, work with staff or make sure it does comply. So I was comfortable personally with 7 striking the first sentence. So again, I don't want to speak for anyone, but that's, if I make a motion, I wanted to make sure that's sort of where we were.
Commissioner Grace, I'll look real quick to staff to confirm on that revision number 7 at least. Is that the opinion of staff that will be accomplished?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so that is up to the 10-mile design review board to approve that. We had made a suggestion, and that's actually up to the applicant if they would like to add something more, or if the 10-mile guide design review board wants them to add something, but ultimately it's their approval.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Rivera, it seemed like you had some feedback.
No, I just wanted to also clarify that.
Okay.
Number 7 to see if that was.
Yeah, so in light of that, Commissioner Grace, I think I'm spot on with that. The only thing I'd like to we could keep in there in G that just working with staff to find some pedestrian access, including language that that access is meant to go through the parking lot and not off kind of some side walkway. Whether that goes through the middle or through some other location, that would be that. If the applicant wants to speak, would we reopen the public hearing?
I'm sorry, so we can't take any more testimony. We close the public hearing. My apologies. No, we're done with public comment. Thank you. So the public hearing portion is closed, so the commission will deliberate, make its motion. If it's not clear, we can work with you from a staff perspective or otherwise.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Just ensuring that, and I appreciate the applicant. I'm not insinuating anything about trying to circumvent the desire of the commission, but I guess what I'm getting at is making it clear that it's meant to go through the parking lot rather than like a quick connection out to innovation and then around to that other path. I'd like for it to be somewhat of a kind of not straight shot necessarily, but from the edge of the parking lot to the Chick-fil-A rather than around. But that's the only thing that I would kind of maybe tweak or add in there just to clarify that that's the intention. But any other commissioners have thoughts or feedback? Commissioner Reese? Or if anyone would like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I will try.
We will appreciate you for the effort.
I make no promises. So After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H-2023-0054 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of November 16th, 2023, with the following modifications. To strike the staff condition 2B. So to strike, excuse me, 2C. To strike staff condition 2C in the report. To strike the word additional in 2B. Thirdly, to strike the first sentence in 2G. However, but instruct the applicant to continue to work with staff to address the pedestrian circulation. To strike in condition 6, language that indicates the applicant needs to submit the property boundary adjustment prior to submitting the certificate of zoning compliance. So strike the condition that it needs to be prior to submitting the certificate of zoning compliance. That's number 4. And finally, strike the first sentence in condition number 7 related to the conceptual elevations. And I think that is it, if I got those correct.
A motion, do I have a second?
I think on just to clarify, Commissioner Grace, on condition number 6 is to remove that and then change it to read prior to issuance of occupancy, of like certificate of occupancy of moving in, correct? Is that what?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I was going to make a similar comment. I think the applicant's suggestion was to be prior to issuance of a building permit. So that would maybe your trigger event instead of certificate of zoning compliance, it would be issuance of a building permit.
Yeah.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, Commissioners, that's correct.
So if I could amend that motion with respect to the requested change to item 6, condition 6, that should read submit the property boundary adjustment, et cetera, prior to submission of a, did you say building permit?
That's correct.
Then that's how that would read.
That maybe instead of submitting, it would be issuance of.
Prior to the issuance of a building permit.
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'll say aye. Seeing none opposed, the motion passes. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to lastly thank you all for your patience in the audience. I'd like to open up item number H-2023-0053 for Crowley Park subdivision. We'll begin with the staff report.
Alrighty, moving on to Crowley Park subdivision. The applicant is here to present their project. The application submitted is annexation and preliminary plat. The site consists of 1.002 acres of land zoned R1 in Ada County, located at 4135 West Cherry Lane. There is no history on the property. The comprehensive plan flume designation is medium density residential. And the summary of the request from the applicant is annexation of again, a little over an acre of land with an R8 zoning district preliminary plat consisting of 4 residential building lots, including 1 existing home to remain and 1 common lot. The subject property is an enclave surrounded by existing single-family residential homes. The site abuts an R8 development to the west. To the south, to the east is an R4 development, and to the north are R2, R4 developments. The subject property is designated as medium density residential on the future land use map, consistent with the approved development to the west. The applicant proposes again, a 4-lot subdivision for single-family residential detached homes and one single-family detached home at a gross density of 3.99 units an acre, which is within the desired density range for the medium density residential designation. A legal description of the annexation and exhibit map for this is included. The property is within the city's area of city impact boundary. A preliminary plat and conceptual building elevations were submitted showing how the property is proposed to be subdivided and developed. The proposed lots range in size from 5,148 to 9,524 square feet. The subdivision is proposed to develop in one phase. The proposed plat and subsequent development are required to comply with the dimensional standards in the UDC table for the R8 zoning district. The plat appears to comply with the standards in the district, except for the front porch on the existing home, which encroaches a little more than 2 feet in the required setbacks. Per the UDC, lots taking access from a common drive do not require street frontage. Access to the property is proposed from Cherry Lane from a common driveway on Lot 1, Block 1. Direct access from Cherry Lane for Lot 2, Block 1 is prohibited. Interior lots 3, 4, 5 at Block 1 are proposed to take access via the common drive, meeting those requirements in the UDC. Common driveways shall serve a maximum of 4 dwelling units. In no case shall more than 3 dwelling units be located on one side of the driveway. The applicant is proposing 4 dwelling units take access off the main common drive. All 4 dwelling units are located on one side of the driveway. However, 3 dwelling units are taking access via a side common driveway that connects to the main common driveway. The director has determined that the proposed orientation of the dwelling of the units off the side common drive meets the intent of the UDC code. Off-street parking is required to be provided in accordance with the UDC for single-family dwellings based on the number of bedrooms per unit. Staff will confirm compliance with these standards at the time of building permit submittal for each residence. The applicant has provided an additional 3 parking stalls at the end of the common drive on the southeast side of the site for overflow parking. The existing home does not meet the required number of off-street parking spaces per the UDC for a 3-bedroom home. 4 parking spaces are required, at least 2 in an enclosed garage. Other spaces may be enclosed or a minimum 10-foot by 20-foot parking pad. The existing home does not have an enclosed 2-car garage. However, the required number of parking spaces is provided via an existing carport and driveway. The applicant is proposing to enclose the carport on the northwest side with a material that matches the existing house. The carport shares a roof line with the existing home and is currently accessed from the west. Access to the carport will change to the south upon approval and completion of the subdivision site improvements once the entry point to the carport is shifted to the south and the common drive is constructed. The applicant is also proposing to add a fence to provide additional screening from the carport from West Cherry Lane. The existing home is recognized as non-conforming due to the off-street parking requirements in the UDC. Per the UDC, no existing structure containing a non-conforming use may be enlarged, extended, constructed, reconstructed, moved, or structurally altered, except through a approval of a conditional use permit. As a result of the non-conformity, the applicant is required to apply for a conditional use permit for any future expansions on the property. There is a 25-foot landscape buffer is required along West Cherry Lane in accordance with the UDC. The landscape plan submitted depicts a 20-foot landscape buffer along West Cherry Lane that includes 4 existing trees. The applicant is proposing a water conserving design aimed to reduce the landscape buffer to 20 feet in width. However, the proposed design lacks features like boulders, rocks, or permeable hardscape materials such as pavers and flagstones and water conserving grasses. The design should incorporate plants and trees that thrive in climates with approximately 10 to 12 inches of annual rainfall. Staff recommends that the applicant revise the landscape plan to comply with the requirements for the water conserving design in accordance with the UDC. Cherry Lane is currently improved with an existing 7-foot wide attached concrete sidewalk abutting the site in accordance with the UDC standards. Staff is not recommending that the sidewalk be replaced. Utilities connection to city and water, sewer and services is required in accordance with the UDC. The existing home is proposed to remain on Lot 2, Block 1, is required to connect to city water and services within 60 days of becoming available. Street lighting is also required to be installed in accordance with the city's adopted standard specifications and ordinances. All fencing is required to comply with the standards. And the applicant is proposing fencing in front of the carport for screening, provided there is not a conflict with the layout of the fire hydrant services. A detail of the fencing should be provided with the final plat. And the pressurized irrigation system, the underground pressurized irrigation water is required to be provided to each lot within the subdivision as set forth within the UDC. Given that the property possesses irrigation rights and access surface rights, should be used as a primary source over the groundwater well in accordance with the regulations of Settlers Irrigation District. Settlers Irrigation District does not permit the exclusion of water rights to the subject parcel. The building elevations, 3 conceptual building elevations were submitted that demonstrate what future homes in this development will look like. Variations of 1-story homes with 3-car garages are proposed. The submitted elevations depict a number of different architectural and design styles and field materials of lap siding, different color and accents, roof profiles, and stone. Currently, there is no written testimony on this project, and staff recommends approval of the annexation and preliminary plat subject to the conditions in the staff report. And that concludes staff's presentation, and I stand for any questions.
Would the applicant like to come up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, for the record, Penelope Constantakis, representing the property owner Luke Gilbert. My address is Post Office Box 405, Boise, Idaho 83701. As you know, the applications for annexation, zoning, and a preliminary plat, and it's, as you know, 4 detached single-family residences with 1 existing and 3 new building lots and future homes. And it is consistent with the surrounding residential development. The proposed density as provided in the staff report is 3.99 units per acre, and it does provide a variety of lot sizes. 1 access point to West Cherry Lane is proposed and has been approved by ACHD. 2 of the homes face north with access from the north. 1 home faces south with access from the south, and 1 home faces north with access from the east. We are reducing the landscape buffer by 20% to allow retention of the front porch area, and we will be using the water conserving landscape plan ordinance that staff has already referenced. We have reviewed both the Meridian and the ACHD staff reports and are in agreement with the findings and conclusions. The engineer and I met with Public Works for detailed discussions recently about the best location for the water lines, the hydrant service line, and the sewer service with required easements. The outcome of the meeting was that the hydrant will be located at the northeast corner or near the northeast corner of the site, with the benefit of being able to hopefully preserve the 2 mature trees that are along the Cherry Lane frontage. Just a few highlights. Crowley Park will add 3 additional PM peak hour trips to West Cherry Lane, which is not very many. Site layout includes 3 guest parking spaces, as staff has already indicated, and I believe we may possibly be able to add a few more at the west end of the fire turnaround area. We'll check on that as we move through the process. Pedestrian access to West Cherry Lane will be provided along the west side of the existing residence to keep that access away from vehicle access. A streetlight is shown at the northeast corner of the site, although it's a little hard to see. These homes are intended for the middle, which is also frequently referred to as workforce housing. And the middle are essential professionals such as school teachers, fire department staff, police, and nursing staff. Crowley Park will provide new home options in an existing and mature neighborhood with full-size trees, which we think is a good thing. The site redesign pairs side yards with existing backyards for the neighbors to the west, and the side yards don't get much use. And so we thought that this would be a great way to preserve their backyard privacy. I would like to offer some additional details regarding the carport on the existing residence. Carport will be changed as staff has indicated to the south, and the north and west sides of the existing carport will be fully clad with siding that will complement the existing residence. From the street, it will appear like it's just a garage. The layout for the existing residence includes 4 parking spaces, 2 which will be in the enclosed carport, and 2 additional spaces will be provided on the apron area to accommodate 2 additional parking spaces, which will be a minimum of 10 by 20 feet. The landscape plan can now be updated with the water conserving design after our meeting with Public Works, and that meeting provided us with the most efficient path forward with utility lines and the fire hydrant located in the northeast corner of the site. The fire department is aware of this hydrant change, and my understanding is the location will work well for fire emergency services. The change in the location of the water service for the hydrant will allow fencing to screen the west side of the front lot. That was a problem before we changed the water line location, and there won't be any fencing location, or excuse me, any fencing conflict. Like I said, we anticipate that both the mature trees will be retained along the frontage, but we will continue to work with Public Works staff as needed. The project narrative discusses retention of the existing well for site irrigation. The front lot is already irrigated off the well. Surface water delivery in this area is a private lateral, which Settlers Irrigation District does not manage. According to the neighbors, this parcel never used surface water. I have tried to contact the water master multiple times with no success, although Settlers has been very helpful. We would like to work with staff on provision of irrigation, and the property owner would like to retain the existing well as the irrigation option, as an irrigation option as it may be needed. With that, I'd be happy to stand for questions or discussion with the commission, and we respectfully request a recommendation of approval for Crowley Park subdivision. Thank you for your time and attention.
Commissioners have any questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, can I just get the applicant to clarify? I probably misheard it, but the comment about the light, was there a traffic light, did you say, in the northwest corner, or can you just clarify that? I was taking notes and I missed that.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, no, it's a street light.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Open up public testimony. Madam Clerk, do you signed up to speak?
We do have 5 signed up. The first on the list is Sarah Curtright.
You want to, okay. Can we get the next on the list?
Judy Curtright.
Oh, just in support. Okay. Yeah, if you want to come up and you can ask your question, that's fine.
Judy Curtright, 4365 West Cherry Lane. The subdivision that went in next to us did not provide a new fence along the whole side. And I just wondered if this will have new fencing on both sides.
We'll have the applicant to come up at the end of testimony. Sorry, actually, I do have one question. Could you clarify if you're here in the other names on the list of support or opposition regarding the project?
I support it. Is that what you're wondering?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
I just wondered about the fence.
Yeah, I assumed support, but I figured that for record that would clarify. Thank you.
Have a Bill Caulfield.
Just come up and get your name and then your address. That'd be great.
Bill Canfield, I live at 4079 West Cherry Lane to the east. There is a lateral, irrigation lateral that feeds off of there. That's what I feed onto. That actually goes into the back of this existing property. So I'm just concerned about my water access there.
Okay.
This fence is property.
Okay, thank you. That's a good question. We can make sure to ask of the applicant when we come back up.
The next on the list is an Esta Bargoin. I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing that. Yes, thank you.
Just get your name and address as well.
Mr. Chairman, can we just make sure everybody's speaking into the microphone? I'm having a hard time hearing multiple folks.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So my name's Esther Burgoyne and I live at 1538 Winter Tree. And so I'm right on the west side of, basically my backyard will be right in the middle of this whole thing. And I don't have any problem with the whole housing and stuff back there. The only concern I have is there is a tree right on the corner that's existing that the branches and the roots are going right into the fence and under the fence and over the fence. And so I think that tree really needs to be either trimmed down or taken out. And then the other concern is the fence along the whole way is vinyl on the west side and it's wood fence on the east side. And even the vinyl side is really starting to deteriorate at the bottom. And so I'm just wondering if all this new construction and stuff going in will harm the fence even more to where, you know, it will like fall apart or anything. But other than those two little items, I have no problem at all with the housing coming in.
All right, thank you very much. Have anyone else signed up to testify?
We do have a Sharon Gooding.
Sharon Gooding. Not here. I did see a couple people leave, so that might have been. Anyone else?
No one else.
All right. I think that covered it. If there's anyone else, or sir, if you'd like to come testify at all, or okay. Would the applicant like to come back up then?
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to reintroduce myself?
Yeah, if you just your name and address would be great.
Penelope Constantakis, Post Office Box 405, Boise, Idaho 83701. I'm not 100% sure where Judy is relative to the project site. Is that something that staff could show me?
Sorry, you could. Unfortunately, we don't.
So if you, I guess, first of all, if the applicant's willing to yield some time to, and then if you would reintroduce yourself, and then if you want to get on
Thank
the
you,
record,
sir.
thank you.
Thank you,
Judy
Kurt.
Wright, 4365 West Cherry Lane, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. We are R2 on the map. So it's not, it's a ways down. But what I'm saying is, I'm just concerned that for the people in this new subdivision, that they get a new fence, because when the subdivision went in right next to us, probably 4 years ago, they left the old fence and it's deteriorated and falling down. And I don't want that to happen in this new subdivision.
Thank you. If I could get your name and address, that'd be great. Thank you, sir.
Everybody, my name is Luke Gilbert at 6245 South Hill Farm Way, South Meridian. As far as the fence goes, it's currently fenced. The fence is in pretty good condition. Actually, it's a cedar fence, pretty well maintained. As we get into the project, I haven't yet considered replacing the fence. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. It's just more the fence that we have up currently is cedar in good condition, relatively well maintained. And I think until we get into the project, it'd be hard for me to commit to that.
Thank you. I did hear there are some other questions about tree trim removal, irrigation, water access, and existing fencing harm, if there are any.
Perfect. Yeah, well, to the tree trimming piece, the arborist is going to dictate what we can and can't remove. I don't know if this tree falls within permission to remove. But we've actually taken a couple of bids from arborists on trees on the property because they are very large trees and they do need some attention over there. We've just been reluctant to move into it before we have permission to do so. So the trees are on our radar.
Mr. Chairman, Penelope Constantakis, Post Office Box 405, Boise, Idaho. The gentleman before me is the property owner. The last item that was brought up was water access, I believe. And as we all know, Idaho statute prohibits anyone from ever interfering with water delivery. So the gentleman to our east will, of course, be preserving his water access. We have no reason to disrupt it. So other than that, I think we've covered everything. Are there any other questions that I can answer?
I don't personally have any. If any other commissioners have any questions. All right, I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
With that, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can I get all ayes or all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes, motion carries. Sorry about that. Thanks, folks, for your patience. Any discussion, deliberation, any thoughts from fellow commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that it's, we use the term a lot, but it's a little bit of an infill project, and these are never, they're sort of dictated and shaped sometimes by other factors. So I get that. I like the idea of their target homeowner. I think that's a great, to the extent that they have too much control over that. I'm glad there's housing for those types of folks. Sounds like the trees and the fencing, they're trying to maintain what they can, and sounds like they're going to be sensitive to the concerns of those around them. So yeah, I'm in favor of it.
Commissioner Rivera. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Grace, and I do. The main thing here is I do appreciate the owner that's going to be as they move forward, keeping an eye on the fence and the tree removal and making sure that that what needs to be done will get done.
I'd echo that. Seems like concerns kind of are around, mostly around edge cases, around kind of marginal stuff. So, you know, it seems like with regarding the application itself, I think it's close to as good as an info project can get in terms of, you know, not being some wonky, crazy thing. And so I like it. I like what the applicant's trying to do here. Just, yeah, with the, you know, maintaining, you know, a close ear to neighbors and concerns and all of that good stuff. I like this a lot. I'll take a motion if anyone.
Make a motion here. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the city council of file number H 2023-0053 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of November 16, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, it looks like that time of day that I will be looking for one more motion.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. I apologize for my camera. I'm in a hotel and the lighting's terrible. So thanks, everybody.
Look great. Thanks.
Good. Playing a party over there.
Good night, everyone.
It's better than my camera.